I never thought a simple Friday morning could feel like the edge of a battlefield. The moment I cracked an egg wrong, the world shifted. A slammed hand, a glare sharp enough to cut glass. That was Gavin Monroe, my stepfather, making sure I knew I belonged to him, not to myself. Every word, every step I took in that house was measured, judged, punished. And that morning, as I carefully slid a pan onto the stove, I realized yet again. I had spent 12 years walking on eggshells, and it was far from over. My name is Emma Sterling, and at 27, I still feel like the 15-year-old trapped in Greenwood, Tennessee, in a house where I'm expected to be invisible. My mother, Margaret Sterling, moves quietly through the halls, her silk robe swaying like a ghost, eyes flicking nervously to Gavin's chair at the head of the table. He sips his coffee like a king surveying his kingdom. And I, the stepchild he never wanted, exist only to serve, to keep the house spotless, the floors polished, the plates washed, the silence obeyed. "Emma," he mutters without looking up, scrolling through his phone. The toast is burnt again. I force a calm smile, hide my irritation. "Sorry, I'll make another batch," I murmur, voice soft as if speaking any louder might ignite a storm. Behind me, Chloe Monroe, his biological daughter, twirls into the kitchen, hair perfect, engagement ring catching the morning light. "Daddy, can we double-check the florist for Saturday? I want the petals arranged just right." "Of course, sweetheart," he says, barely looking up. His attention, like the spotlight, always shines on Chloe, while I remain in shadow, my achievements and dreams invisible. I flip another pancake, careful not to splatter oil, careful not to breathe too loud. My body has been trained to anticipate the next strike, the next insult. "Emma, make sure the centerpieces are ready this afternoon," Margaret whispers, her voice trembling as she tries to please both men in her life. She's beautiful once, now almost transparent, her energy sapped by years of submission. 6 years ago, I had dreams. I was working 2 jobs while attending community college, scraping together tuition to follow the career my grandmother had wanted for me. A life of law, justice, independence. Every paycheck I saved secretly, hidden in accounts Gavin didn't know existed. That money was my lifeline, my escape, my hope. "Working late again, Emma?" Gavin finally asks, voice cold. "Don't expect us to wait for you. Some of us have real responsibilities." I nod, forcing calm, turning back to the stove. "Yes, Mr. Monroe. Henderson and Associates has a trial next week." He smirks faintly. "Good. Keep busy. That's all you're good for anyway." "What?" The words sting, but they are nothing new. I've learned to swallow the insults, hide the bruises, and keep planning in silence. Planning for the day when I'll finally claim what was stolen from me. Not just the money, but my voice, my identity, my freedom. Even as Chloe prances by with her coffee and designer handbag, I continue folding napkins, addressing wedding favors for her engagement party. Every ribbon, every box, is a reminder of the life Gavin built on my labor, my invisibility. "Emma, the ribbons go the other way," he instructs from the doorway, voice calm but sharp. I redo the work, silently cursing, but keeping my face neutral. Each day is a performance, each act of obedience a shield against punishment. And yet, in the back of my mind, I'm collecting evidence, remembering, planning, preparing. Every misstep he believes he's controlling, I'm storing in memory, ready to use when the time comes. I glance at my mother, who bends over a table of favors, hands shaking, eyes cast down. "One day, Emma, maybe it'll be your turn," she whispers, almost inaudibly. I meet her eyes, seeing the weight of complicity, the cost of fear. But the fire in me has not died. I fold another box with deliberate precision, tasting a mix of anger, determination, and anticipation. For years, I've been the shadow in my own home. Now, every detail I observe, every slight, every command, is another piece of the puzzle I will one day turn against the man who thinks he owns me. And that day, I promise myself, will come sooner than he thinks. Until then, I survive. I plan, and I endure. Every egg cracked, every ribbon tied, every whispered word in that house is a step toward reclaiming my life. Gavin Monroe may control the kitchen, the coffee, and the morning light, but he cannot touch the part of me that is already preparing to break free. I had always suspected something was off, but the truth hit harder than any blow Gavin had ever dealt me. That night, while Chloe prattled about floral arrangements, I quietly opened the file Mr. Langley had sent, the one marked confidential, untouched for weeks. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. There it was. The Eleanor Prescott Trust, $850 earmarked for me when I turned 21. And yet, according to the records, not a single cent had reached me. I felt my stomach drop. Every late night, I'd spent scrubbing floors, folding napkins, answering Chloe's endless demands. All those hours while Gavin built her princess life had been funded by what was rightfully mine. A cold rage prickled along my spine. I leaned back in my chair, listening to Chloe laughing in the next room, unaware of the storm I was holding in my hands. The more I read, the worse it became. Gavin's signature, forged, signed to withdraw funds, to redirect them into his construction business, to pay for Chloe's car, her tuition, even that engagement party he bragged about so casually. Each entry was meticulous, calculated, deliberate. It was theft wrapped in legality, a labyrinth meant to hide his crimes from me. I clenched my fists. The quiet click of my phone startled me. My recorder was already on. Every step he took, every word he muttered in my presence over the years, I had been capturing. And now, for the first time, I felt the weight of proof in my hands. Not hearsay, not suspicion, real evidence. "Emma, are you okay?" Margaret's voice floated from the hallway, hesitant, cautious. She had never really questioned Gavin openly, but somehow her presence reminded me of everything I'd endured. I forced a calm tone. "Yes, just reviewing some paperwork from work." She nodded and drifted away, leaving me alone with the truth I had to face. Over the next week, I worked with Mr. Langley and Mrs. Abbott, a meticulous forensic accountant. We traced every dollar. The withdrawals were consistent, precise, always just under federal reporting thresholds. Investments labeled as business growth led directly back to Gavin's failing ventures. Boats, trips, Chloe's lifestyle. My inheritance had funded it all. Every detail twisted my stomach with disbelief and fury. "What do you think he'll do if he finds out you're onto him?" Mr. Langley asked over the phone one evening. I paused, fingers tracing the edge of the papers. "He'll try to scare me. He's done it before." "And you're prepared?" I swallowed hard. I have to be. Even as I organized the files, planned meetings, and calculated the steps for legal action, Gavin's presence loomed in every corner of the house. The sound of his boots on the hardwood, the subtle slam of doors, the casual comment about dinner or Chloe's schoolwork. Each one was a reminder that he still controlled the environment, still tried to dominate my senses. But now, armed with evidence, I felt a shift in my fear, a mixture of adrenaline and anticipation that made my pulse race. Every phone call, every note, every carefully saved document was another brick in the fortress I was building to reclaim my life. I imagined confronting him, not in violence, but in court, where every lie, every forged signature, every stolen dollar would be exposed. The thought made my hands shake, but I smiled faintly. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing to fight, to take back control, to see justice done. And as I sat there late into the night, listening to Chloe's laughter drifting from the kitchen, I whispered to myself, "You stole my future, Gavin, but this time, it ends differently." The storm of anger, fear, and hope swirled inside me, and I knew the coming days would test every ounce of courage I had. But I also knew one thing. I was no longer powerless. The night before the hearing, my apartment felt like a war zone. Papers were spread across the table, bank statements, trust documents, and the audio recording I had made of Gavin's latest threats. The sound of his voice, calm and dangerous, echoed in my ears every time I replayed it. He thought he could intimidate me, scare me into silence, but this time I had the upper hand. Mr. Langley arrived shortly after I called. His presence was steady, reassuring, a stark contrast to the chaos that had ruled my life for so long. "Emma, we've got everything lined up," he said, spreading the evidence methodically across the table. The forged signatures, the illegal withdrawals, the recordings, everything. Mrs. Abbott, meticulous as ever, sifted through the spreadsheets again, her finger tracing numbers with precision. "Look at this," she said. "Every withdrawal aligns perfectly with Gavin's personal expenses and Chloe's lifestyle. Nothing went to you. This isn't just theft, it's systematic embezzlement." I nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. I could feel my heart pounding, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally having a path to justice. "What about Chloe?" I asked, thinking of the golden girl who had unknowingly lived off what was mine. Mr. Langley looked at me seriously. "She knows more than she admits. If she's willing to testify, it will bolster your case. She can confirm Gavin directed her to hide the truth." The thought made my stomach churn. Chloe had benefited from my loss for years, yet now she was on the side of truth, or at least on the side of the law. My mind flashed to every ribbon I had tied for her engagement, every centerpiece I had arranged, every dollar I had silently earned to keep the household running. The injustice of it all fueled my resolve. Saturday morning, Gavin came to the house under the guise of discussing mundane matters, completely unaware that I was recording him. I could hear his voice through the small recorder clipped to my blouse. He approached my room, his tone deceptively calm. "Emma, what are you working on now?" "Just some paperwork from work," I replied, voice steady. My hands moved deliberately, keeping the recorder in plain view. He paused, sensing something, but didn't act. I held my breath. Every second felt like a trap I had to survive until the court would hear the truth. Later that day, Mr. Langley and I went through the evidence again, double-checking the dates, the amounts, and the forged documents. Mrs. Abbott had already prepared a report mapping every withdrawal to Gavin's personal purchases, showing a clear pattern of fraud. I watched the numbers, feeling both disbelief and a grim satisfaction. Each entry was a mark of betrayal, but also a weapon I could use. When Chloe finally agreed to meet, she arrived quietly, dressed simply, far from the polished, perfect girl I had seen in the kitchen all those years. She handed me a folder of screenshots, messages, and notes showing Gavin's instructions to her over the years. Her voice was low, hesitant, but firm. "I was told to pretend nothing was wrong," she admitted. "I benefited, yes, but it was him manipulating everything. I can testify." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of silence pressing on me. "Thank you," I said softly. "This will make a difference. We can finally show the court everything, the lies, the control, the theft." By the end of the day, all pieces were in place. The recordings, the forged documents, Chloe's testimony, the forensic accounting. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with fear. Hope because justice might finally be on my side. Fear because Gavin was still out there, unpredictable and dangerous. As I sat alone in my apartment that night, listening to the faint hum of the city, I realized something crucial. I was no longer the powerless girl in his house. Every number, every recording, every testimony had shifted the balance. The battlefield had changed, and this time, I was ready. I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, it all comes out. He won't control me anymore, not in court, not in my life." And for the first time in years, the tight knot in my chest loosened just a little. The fight was coming, and this time, I had the evidence to win. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and nervous anticipation. As I stepped inside Greenwood Court, the chatter of townspeople and the rustle of legal pads faded into the background. Every eye seemed to follow me, some curious, some judgmental, but I forced myself to focus on the evidence I had spent weeks preparing. Gavin sat across the table, perfectly composed in his suit, the mask of authority clinging to him as tightly as ever. But I could see the tension in his jaw, the twitch of his hand over the defense papers. I took a deep breath. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment 12 years of fear and silence finally met the light of truth. "Your Honor," Mr. Langley began, voice steady, "we are here to present a full accounting of the Eleanor Prescott Trust, which was misappropriated by Mr. Gavin Monroe over the past several years. We have evidence of systematic theft, forgery, and financial abuse." The judge nodded, her expression unreadable, and the room fell silent as Mrs. Abbott handed over meticulously organized spreadsheets, each entry detailing Gavin's withdrawals, the dates, and the personal expenses they funded. Boats, luxury cars, Chloe's school tuition, parties, and vacations, all traced back to what should have been my inheritance. Then it was Chloe's turn. She walked to the witness stand, no longer the carefree princess of my childhood memories, but a serious, nervous young woman facing the reality of her complicity. The prosecutor asked, "Were you aware of how your father used Emma's inheritance?" "Yes," she admitted, voice trembling. "I knew some of the money was meant for her, and I benefited from it. I was told to stay quiet." Her eyes flicked toward Gavin. He made me follow his instructions. I felt a shiver, a mix of anger and relief. My stepsister, the one who had unknowingly lived off my labor and inheritance, was finally telling the truth. When my turn came, I stood, my hands steady, voice strong. I told the story of my life under Gavin's control. The constant surveillance, the fear, the abuse, and the silent labor that funded Chloe's perfect life. I recounted discovering the trust, the forged signatures, the misappropriated funds, and the recordings of Gavin's threats. I didn't just tell the court what had been done to me, I showed them the evidence. The room seemed to hold its breath as I played the recording. His voice, calm and commanding, threatening, controlling, dismissive, filled the courtroom. The subtle slap, the threats to ruin me if I spoke out, every word undeniable, every threat documented. Even his lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mrs. Abbott explained the accounting, highlighting patterns of withdrawals, cleverly disguised as business expenses, that had funded Gavin's personal luxuries. The clarity, the precision, left no room for doubt. I could see it in the judge's eyes. She was absorbing the magnitude of his manipulation, the betrayal of trust, the systematic abuse of my inheritance. After hours of testimony, the verdict was delivered. Gavin Monroe was found guilty of fraud, forgery, and elder financial abuse. The judge's words were deliberate, heavy with consequence. 10 years in state prison and full restitution to me, including interest and penalties. I sat back, letting the weight of justice settle, a strange mixture of relief, disbelief, and triumph washing over me. As the bailiffs led him away, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Freedom. My life, my inheritance, my voice, all reclaimed. Chloe stood silently behind me, and for a brief moment, we shared an understanding. Justice had been served, but more importantly, the control that had shadowed my life for years had finally been broken. Leaving the courthouse, the crisp air of Greenwood felt different, lighter. Every sound, the distant hum of traffic, the footsteps on the sidewalk, the chatter of townspeople, was proof that the world had shifted. I was no longer the powerless girl hiding in her own home. I was Emma Sterling, ready to step into the life that had always been mine, built on courage, evidence, and the unwavering determination to reclaim what was stolen. The morning sun poured through the windows of my grandmother Eleanor's house, illuminating every corner that had been mine long before Gavin's control. For the first time in over 12 years, I felt the house belonged to me. Not a stepchild, not a shadow, but Emma Sterling, owner of my past, my inheritance, and my future. The trust fund, the legal victories, and the reclaimed home were tangible proof that I had fought, survived, and won. Boxes of childhood memories awaited me. Photo albums, letters, and trinkets that told the story of a girl who had once dreamed freely. I held a worn photograph of my grandmother smiling at me from a piano recital, her hands guiding my small fingers across the keys. The piano itself, old but perfectly tuned, stood in the corner of the living room, a silent sentinel of my reclaimed life. Sitting down, I let my fingers dance across the keys, playing the simple melodies she had taught me, each note ringing with the freedom and resilience I had longed for. Chloe came by that afternoon, hesitant and nervous, stripped of the princess airs that had defined her for years. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability, the recognition of the years we had both been trapped in Gavin's web. "Emma," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. I was part of it, and I want to make things right." I nodded, the bitterness softened by understanding. "We were both his victims," I replied. "We can't undo the past, but we can choose who we become now." For a moment, the weight of 12 years lifted, replaced by a fragile, tentative connection. We were not sisters in the past sense, but perhaps allies in the future, each of us learning to reclaim our lives and our choices. Over the next weeks, I arranged the house, packed legal documents, and planned my move to Atlanta for Emory Law School. The city promised new beginnings, a career built on knowledge, justice, and the principles my grandmother had instilled in me. Every step I took, every decision I made, felt infused with purpose. I was no longer reacting to fear or control. I was building my future deliberately, with courage and clarity. The town of Greenwood had seen Gavin fall, the man who had once loomed over my life with violence and deceit. Word of the trial spread, and whispers of sympathy and curiosity followed me in the streets. Some apologized quietly, others avoided me entirely. I let it all pass. My focus was my life, my dreams, and honoring the legacy of the woman who had saved my future from afar. That evening, I returned to the piano, my fingers moving over the keys with a grace that had been dormant for too long. The music filled the house, resonating through rooms that had once echoed with fear, now alive with possibility. Each note was a statement. I was free, I was powerful, and I had survived. The past 12 years of silence, labor, and control had ended. Justice had been served, and now life stretched before me, unclaimed and bright. To everyone listening, I want to say, cherish your voice, protect your dreams, and never let anyone convince you that you are less than you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey through fear, courage, and justice. From my heart to yours, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a season full of hope, love, and joy. If Emma's story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of women reclaiming their lives and sharing their voices. Your support helps these stories reach those who need inspiration the most. Remember, courage isn't always loud. It can be the quiet determination to stand up for yourself, even when the world expects you to stay silent.